The candle flickered between them, casting shadows across Grace's face as she stared at the restored photograph in her hands. 20 years of marriage reduced to this moment in a corner booth at Romano's, the same restaurant where Wes had proposed decades ago. He'd spent weeks getting that photo restored, their first Christmas together, both of them young and broke, grinning at each other like they'd won the lottery. "You remember that day?" Wes asked, cutting into his steak with steady hands. At 49, he still moved with the precision of his military days, every gesture deliberate. Grace set the frame down without looking at him. "I remember a lot of things." The weariness in her voice hit him like a cold wind. This wasn't how he'd imagined their anniversary dinner. He'd made reservations 2 months ago, requested their old table, even ordered the same wine they'd shared on their first date. Now Grace sat across from him, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. "The kids called," he said, trying to bridge the silence. "Cassidy's excited about the wedding planning. Delaney found a venue they like out in Monument. Good for them." Grace's fork clicked against her plate as she pushed food around without eating. Wes watched her, noting the new highlights in her hair, the way she'd started wearing makeup to dinner again after years of casual evenings. Small changes he'd noticed over the past few months, but hadn't questioned. "Grace, what's going on? You've been distant for weeks." She looked up then, and he saw something in her eyes he'd never seen before. Not anger or frustration, but something colder. Resolution. "You gave your whole life to us," she said quietly. "And somewhere in there, I lost mine." The words hung between them like smoke. Wes set down his fork, his appetite vanishing. "What does that mean?" Grace reached in her purse and pulled out a set of keys. His truck keys. She placed them on the table between the candle and the photograph. "I'm moving out. I've already taken my things to a condo downtown. I want a separation." The restaurant noise faded to background static. Wes stared at the keys, then at his wife of 20 years. The woman who'd held his hand through his father's funeral, who'd waited for him through 2 deployments, who'd raised their son while he worked long hours at the technical college. Just like that. His voice stayed level, controlled. 20 years, and you're done?" "I'm not done. I'm starting over." Grace's chin lifted. "The house was in both our names. The lawyer says I can claim my share. The car's under my name. The money's split. You can have the apartment." Wes felt something cold settle in his chest. This wasn't a conversation. It was a briefing. She'd already decided everything. "You've been planning this." "I've been thinking about it for months." She stood up, leaving her dinner untouched. "I'll send someone for the rest of my things tomorrow." "Grace, wait." He started to rise, but she was already walking away. Through the restaurant window, he watched her climb into his old Ford pickup. The passenger door opened, and a man slid in beside her. Younger, athletic build, wearing a tight shirt that showed off his gym-sculpted arms. The man leaned over and kissed Grace's cheek before she drove away. Wes sat back down and stared at the photograph. 2 young people who believed in forever, smiling at a future that had just died. He picked up his phone and called Cassidy. "Dad, how was dinner?" "Your mother left me." The words came out flat, matter of fact. "She's moved out. We're separated." Silence stretched across the line. Then Cassidy's voice, tight with shock. "What? Are you serious?" "Dead serious. She's downtown with her new boyfriend. Took my truck." "Jesus, Dad. I'm coming over." "No." Wes stood up, leaving cash on the table. "Don't get in the middle of this. I'll handle it." He drove home in Grace's sedan, the one she'd left him like a consolation prize. The house felt different the moment he walked in. Emptier. Her closet was cleared out, bathroom counterbare of her cosmetics. She'd taken the good towels, the coffee maker, half the dishes, but she'd left the wedding photos. Wes walked through the house, noting what was missing. The antique lamp from her grandmother. The throw pillows she bought last year. The expensive kitchen knives he'd given her for Christmas. She'd been systematic, calculating. This wasn't a spontaneous decision driven by emotion. This was a carefully planned exit. He sat at the kitchen table and opened his laptop. If Grace wanted to play lawyer, he'd play lawyer. But he wouldn't play victim. The next morning, Wes called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. He spent the day making phone calls, starting with his bank. "I need to freeze all joint accounts," he told the manager. "My wife and I are separating." "I'm sorry to hear that," Mr. Anderson. I'll need you to come in and sign some paperwork. By noon, he'd secured the accounts, changed the passwords on their shared credit cards, and made an appointment with Lennon, the lawyer who'd handled their house purchase. He worked with military precision, each task checked off a mental list. Cassidy arrived at 3, still in his scrubs from the physical therapy clinic. At 23, he had Grace's dark hair, but Wes's steady temperament. Usually, today he looked shaken. I tried calling Mom, Cassidy said, slumping into a chair. It went straight to voicemail. She's probably busy with her new life. Wes poured coffee into 2 mugs. How much did you know? Nothing. I swear, Dad. She never said anything about being unhappy, about wanting out. Cassidy ran his hands through his hair. Who's the guy? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. Cassidy looked up sharply. Dad, don't do anything crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm methodical. Wes sat across from his son. Your mother thinks she can walk away from 20 years like it was a rental agreement. She's about to learn otherwise. Maybe you guys can work it out. Marriage counseling or something. Wes shook his head. She didn't want to work it out. She wanted to replace me. There's a difference. That evening, Wes called his old Army buddy Jeb Monroe. They'd served together in Afghanistan, and Jeb had a talent for finding information. I need you to run a background check on someone, Wes said. Grace is seeing someone new. I want to know who he is. Copy that. Got a name? Not yet, but I will. Jeb's voice turned serious. Brother, you sure about this? Sometimes it's better not to know. I'm sure. Grace made her choice. Now I need to make mine. 2 days later, Jeb called back with answers. His name's Jasper Duval. Goes by Jazz. 29 years old, personal trainer at that fancy gym downtown. No steady income, bounces between part-time jobs. 3 previous relationships with older women, all ended badly. Wes wrote down the information. What kind of badly? The kind where the ladies found out he was seeing other ladies. Guy's got a pattern. Targets women with money, charms them into paying for his lifestyle, then moves on when the well runs dry. Grace doesn't know this. If she does, she doesn't care. Word is he's been working on her for months. Started as her trainer, then became her confidant. Classic move. Wes thanked Jeb and hung up. So Grace's new beginning was built on the oldest lie in the book. A younger man pretending to love her for her mind while emptying her bank account. The irony wasn't lost on him. Grace had accused him of being predictable, boring. Now she was falling for the most predictable con in the world. His phone rang. Grace's number. We need to talk, she said without preamble. About what? About the house. About the money. About how we're going to handle this. I thought you already handled it. You took what you wanted and left. Don't be dramatic, Wes. We're adults. We can work this out civilly. Civilly? He laughed, a sound without humor. You walked out on our anniversary dinner to be with another man. Don't talk to me about civility. I tried to tell you how I felt. You never listened. When? When did you try to tell me you wanted to leave me for a 29-year-old gym rat? Silence. Then, I'm not discussing this over the phone. Meet me at the lawyer's office tomorrow at 2. The line went dead. Wes stared at the phone, then called Lennon's office to schedule his own appointment. If Grace wanted to fight dirty, he'd show her what 20 years of marriage to a methodical man had taught him about her weaknesses. Grace looked different in the lawyer's office. Younger somehow, wearing a dress he'd never seen before and shoes that clicked against the floor like a countdown timer. She sat across from him with Jazz beside her, the young man's hand possessively on her shoulder. This is Jazz, she said, as if introducing a business partner. He's here for moral support. Wes studied the younger man. Handsome in an obvious way, with the kind of smile that belonged on a supplement bottle. He wore expensive clothes paid for with Grace's money, no doubt. Nice to meet you, Jazz said, extending his hand. Wes ignored it. Let's get this over with. The lawyer, a thin woman named Patricia Wells, shuffled through paperwork. Mrs. Anderson has filed for legal separation. She's requesting half of all marital assets, including the house. That's reasonable, Grace said. We built this life together. Did we? Wes looked at her directly for the first time. Because I seem to remember you checking out about 6 months ago, right around the time you started spending our money on gym memberships and new clothes. Grace's cheeks flushed. I was trying to improve myself. To be happy. By lying to me every day. By planning your exit while pretending everything was normal. I didn't lie. Wes pulled out his phone and showed her a bank statement. March 15th, $500 to Elite Fitness. March 22nd, $300 to some boutique I've never heard of. April 3rd, $1,000 cash withdrawal. Want to explain what that was for? Grace's lawyer cleared her throat. Mr. Anderson, these are normal expenses during a marriage. Normal for a woman planning to leave her husband. Maybe. Wes put his phone away. How long have you been planning this, Grace? When did you first decide I wasn't good enough anymore? It wasn't about you not being good enough. Then what was it about? Grace looked at Jazz, who squeezed her shoulder encouragingly. It was about me being alive again. About feeling wanted and desired and appreciated. So you chose him. Wes nodded toward Jazz. A man who makes less in a year than you spend on shoes. Jazz's smile faltered. Hey man, there's no need to. I wasn't talking to you. Wes's voice could have cut glass. I was talking to my wife. The woman who threw away 20 years for a midlife crisis with a personal trainer. That's enough. Grace stood up. I don't have to listen to this. Actually, you do. Because unlike you, I believe in honoring commitments, even when they're painful. Grace's lawyer intervened. Perhaps we should schedule another meeting when emotions aren't running so high. My emotions are fine, Wes said. I just want to make sure Grace understands what she's asking for. She wants half of everything we built together. That includes the debt, the mortgage, the credit cards she's been maxing out for the past 6 months. Grace sat back down, her face pale. What debt? The debt you created. The credit cards you opened in both our names. The line of credit you took out against the house. Wes smiled coldly. Did you think I wouldn't notice? I handle our finances, Grace. I see every transaction. Jazz whispered something in Grace's ear. She nodded, then looked at Wes with something like hatred. Fine. We'll split everything equally, including the debt. No, Wes said quietly. You'll take responsibility for what you created. I'll take responsibility for what I created. And we'll see who comes out ahead. As they left the lawyer's office, Wes heard Jazz arguing with Grace in the parking lot. You didn't tell me about the debt, babe. How much are we talking about? It's not that much. And it's not your problem. If we're together, it's my problem. How are we supposed to start the business with all this hanging over us? Wes paused at his car, listening. Business? What business? Grace's voice turned pleading. Jazz, please. We can work this out. Once the house sells, we'll have enough to pay everything off and still have money left over. How much money? Maybe $50,000. Maybe more. Jazz's tone brightened. That's enough to get started. The gym space I looked at only needs a $20,000 deposit. So that was the plan. Grace would sell the house, split the proceeds, and fund her boyfriend's business dreams. Wes felt a cold fury settle in his chest. Not because of the money, but because of the betrayal. Grace was willing to destroy their family, to chase a fantasy with a man who only saw her as a financial opportunity. He drove home and called Cassidy. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Has your mother talked to you about signing any papers? Papers? What kind of papers? Legal documents. Something about the house or inheritance. No, why would she wait? Cassidy's voice changed. Actually, yeah. She brought some stuff by last week when you were at work. Said it was to protect my inheritance if something happened to you guys. I didn't sign anything because Delaney said we should read it first. Smart girl. Do you still have the papers? Yeah, they're here somewhere. What? Bring them to me. Tonight. An hour later, Cassidy and Delaney sat at Wes's kitchen table while he read through the legal documents. Delaney Shaw was a sharp-eyed law student, and she'd been right to be suspicious. This isn't about protecting your inheritance, Wes told his son. This is about signing away your rights to contest the sale of the house. If you'd signed this, your mother could have sold the house and kept all the money. Cassidy looked sick. She tried to trick me. She tried to trick both of us. But she underestimated your fiancé's legal training. Delaney leaned forward. Mr. Anderson, there's something else. The way these documents are written, they're designed to look protective while actually being predatory. Your wife has been getting legal advice from someone who specializes in this kind of thing. Divorce attorneys? Worse, someone who helps people hide assets during separations. This is sophisticated financial deception. Wes stared at the papers. Grace hadn't just left him on impulse. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. The betrayal ran deeper than he'd imagined. "Dad, what are you going to do?" Cassidy asked. Wes looked at his son, then at the young woman who'd protected him from his own mother's manipulation. "I'm going to make sure your mother learns that actions have consequences. And I'm going to make sure she never hurts this family again." The next morning, Wes sat in Lennon's office with a stack of financial documents spread across the desk. His lawyer, a silver-haired man in his 60s, whistled softly as he reviewed the evidence. "This is extensive," Lennon said. "Your wife has been moving money for almost a year. Small amounts at first, then larger withdrawals over the past 6 months. Can you track where it went?" "Some of it. The gym membership, the clothing purchases, the cash withdrawals. But there's about $15,000 that just disappeared. ATM withdrawals in small amounts over several months." Wes leaned back in his chair. She was funding his lifestyle. Probably paying his rent, buying his groceries, covering his expenses while he worked on reeling her in. That's what it looks like. The question is what you want to do about it. "I want to protect my son's inheritance. I want to make sure she can't steal from him the way she stole from me." Lennon nodded. The paper she tried to get him to sign would have given her legal cover to claim the house was solely hers. Since he didn't sign, she can't make that claim. What about the debt she created? That's trickier. Some of it was on joint accounts, which makes you both responsible. But the secret credit cards she opened? Those are hers alone. Wes studied the financial records. Grace had been careful, but not careful enough. She'd left a trail of financial deception that painted a clear picture of premeditation. "I want to file for divorce," he said. "Not separation. Divorce. And I want to contest every asset she's claiming. That's going to be expensive. And messy. I don't care about expensive. And messy is what happens when people try to rob their own families." Lennon made notes. "I'll need everything you have. Bank statements, credit card records, receipts, emails. Anything that shows the timeline of her deception. You'll have it by tomorrow." Wes drove home and spent the afternoon gathering evidence. Grace had been sloppy about covering her tracks, probably because she'd never expected him to fight back. She'd always seen him as passive, accommodating, a man who avoided conflict. She was about to learn how wrong she'd been. His phone rang. Delaney's number. "Mr. Anderson? I hope I'm not overstepping, but I found something you should know about." "What kind of something?" "I have a friend who works at the county clerk's office. Your wife filed papers to refinance the house 3 weeks ago. She's trying to cash out the equity." Wes felt the blood drain from his face. "Can she do that without my signature?" "Not legally. But if she forged your signature, it might go through before anyone notices. Can you find out more?" "I'm already on it. I'll call you back." Wes hung up and immediately called the mortgage company. After 20 minutes of automated menus and transfers, he reached someone who could help. "I need to put a freeze on any refinancing activity on my account," he said. "I'll need to verify your identity first." After answering security questions, Wes learned that Grace had indeed applied for a cash-out refinance. The application was under review, but hadn't been approved yet. "I want to contest this application. My wife filed without my knowledge during our separation. I'll put a hold on the application and flag the account. You'll need to come in with documentation proving the separation." Wes scheduled an appointment for the next day, then called Delaney back. "Did you find anything else?" "More than I expected. Your wife has been busy. She's also applied for a business loan using the house as collateral. If both applications had gone through, she would have extracted almost $200,000 in equity. $200,000. The house is worth more than you think. Property values in your area have gone up significantly in the past 5 years." Wes sat down heavily. Grace hadn't just been planning to leave him. She'd been planning to financially destroy him in the process. "There's more," Delaney continued. "The business loan application lists her boyfriend as a co-applicant. If it had gone through, he would have been legally entitled to half the money. So she was going to give him $100,000 of my money to start his gym. It looks that way, but none of it has been approved yet. If you act fast, you can stop all of it." Wes thanked Delaney and hung up. Then he called Cassidy. "I need to tell you something about your mother, and about what she's been planning." That evening, Cassidy sat in stunned silence as Wes explained the financial documents, the refinancing attempts, the business loan application. She was going to steal our house. Cassidy asked. She was going to steal your inheritance. The money that was supposed to help you and Delaney start her life together. Cassidy shook his head. I can't believe she would do this. This isn't the woman who raised me. No, it's not. But it's the woman she became when she decided she deserved more than the life we built together. What do you need me to do? Wes looked at his son, seeing the man he'd raised. Honest, loyal, principled. Everything Grace had once been. I need you to decide what kind of man you are. I raise you not to accept lies, even from your mother. But this is your choice to make. Cassidy was quiet for a long moment. Then, she lied to me. She tried to trick me into signing away my rights. She's stealing from our family to pay for her boyfriend's dreams. Yes. Then I'm on your side. Whatever you need me to do. I need you to be a witness. To testify about what she asked you to sign. To confirm that she's been planning this for months. Cassidy nodded grimly. She's not the woman who raised me anymore. I won't protect someone who's trying to destroy our family. 3 days later, Wes's phone rang. Grace's number. We need to talk, she said. Her voice sounded different. Strained. About what? About what you've been doing. The mortgage company called. They said you blocked the refinancing. I protected my home from being stolen. There's a difference. It's my house too, Wes. I have a right to my share. You have a right to your share of what exists. Not to create debt I didn't agree to. I'm not creating debt. I'm accessing equity. To fund your boyfriend's business. Money that belongs to our son's inheritance. Silence. Then, how do you know about the business? I know about everything, Grace. The secret credit cards, the forged applications, the cash withdrawals. I know about all of it. You can't prove anything. I can prove everything. Bank records, credit applications, witness statements. You've been planning this for almost a year. I was trying to secure my future by destroying mine, by stealing from our son, by lying to everyone who trusted you. Grace's voice turned cold. You want to fight? Fine, we'll fight. But don't expect me to make it easy for you. I wouldn't dream of it. But Grace, you picked a fight with the wrong man. The line went dead. That afternoon, Wes received a call from Lennon. Your wife's attorney called. They want to meet. Something about a settlement offer. What kind of settlement? They wouldn't say. But they want to meet tomorrow. Both parties present. Wes agreed to the meeting, but he had no intention of settling. Grace had declared war the moment she decided to steal from their family. Now she was going to learn what war looked like. The next day's meeting was held in a conference room at Grace's attorney's office. Grace sat across from Wes, looking haggard. Jazz wasn't with her. Where's your moral support? Wes asked. Grace's attorney, a sharp-faced woman named Patricia Wells, spoke before Grace could answer. Mr. Duval is no longer involved in these proceedings. Trouble in paradise. Grace looked up sharply. Jazz and I are taking a break. We decided it was better to handle this without complications. Wes almost smiled. So the young man had run when he realized the money wasn't as easy to access as he'd thought. Predictable. My client is prepared to offer a reasonable settlement, Wells continued. She'll take 25% of the house value and waive all claims to your pension and retirement accounts. In exchange for what? A quick, quiet divorce. No contested assets, no lengthy court proceedings. Wes looked at Grace. She wouldn't meet his eyes. What happened to Jazz's business loan? That's no longer relevant, Wells said. It's relevant to me. A week ago, Grace was ready to mortgage our house to fund her boyfriend's gym. Now, she's willing to take a quarter of what she originally demanded. What changed? Grace finally looked at him. Jazz and I had a disagreement about priorities. He found out about the debt, didn't he? The credit cards you've been hiding. The loans you applied for. He realized you weren't the financial catch he thought you were. That's not what happened. Then what had happened? Grace was quiet for a long moment. Then, he was seeing someone else. Has been for months. Wes felt a flicker of something that might have been satisfaction. So the man who convinced you to leave your husband was cheating on you the whole time. It doesn't matter. We're still separated. You're still leaving me for a man who is using you. I'm leaving you because I'm unhappy. Jazz was a mistake, but leaving you wasn't. Wes leaned forward. Then here's my counteroffer. You take nothing. You pay back every penny you stole from our joint accounts. You take responsibility for all the debt you created, and you stay away from our son. Wells started to protest, but Wes held up his hand. I'm not finished. You tried to defraud the mortgage company. You tried to trick our son into signing away his inheritance. You've been planning this betrayal for months while pretending to be a loving wife and mother. I never pretended to be anything. You pretended to be honest. You pretended to be trustworthy. You pretended to care about our family. Grace stood up. I don't have to listen to this. Actually, you do. Because unlike you, I kept records. I have proof of everything you've done. And if you don't accept my terms, I'll make sure the whole world knows exactly what kind of person you really are. You can't threaten me. I'm not threatening you. I'm promising you. Push this to court, and I'll make sure every dirty detail gets aired in public. Your coworkers, your friends, your family. Everyone will know how you tried to steal your own son's inheritance to fund your boyfriend's fantasies. Grace's face went white. You wouldn't do that. Try me. Wells cleared her throat. Perhaps we should take a recess and discuss this privately. No need, Wes said, standing up. Grace has 48 hours to decide. Accept my terms, or we go to court and let a judge decide who's telling the truth. He left the conference room without looking back. In the parking lot, he called Cassidy. How did it go? His son asked. Your mother's boyfriend dumped her. Turns out he was cheating the whole time. Jesus. Is she okay? She's getting what she deserves. And she has 2 days to decide if she wants to keep getting it. Dad, I know she hurt you, but she's still my mother. She stopped being your mother the moment she decided to steal your inheritance. Now she's just a woman who made some very bad choices. Cassidy was quiet for a moment. The wedding is in 3 weeks. Are you both still coming? I'll be there. Whether she comes is up to her. I don't want any drama at my wedding. There won't be any drama, unless she brings it. That evening, Wes had dinner with Zora Bennett, his oldest friend and the owner of a small restaurant in downtown Colorado Springs. They'd known each other since high school, and she'd been the one person who'd seen through Grace's act from the beginning. I heard about the separation, Zora said, setting a plate of pasta in front of him. How are you holding up? I'm fine. Grace is the one who's having problems. The boyfriend didn't work out. The boyfriend was a con artist. Took her for everything she was worth, then dumped her when he found a better mark. Zora shook her head. I tried to warn you about her. Years ago. But you were too in love to listen. What did you see that I missed? The way she talked about your future. It was always about what you could give her, never about what you could build together. She saw you as a provider, not a partner. Wes thought about that. She said I gave my whole life to the family, and she lost hers. That's just her way of saying she regrets choosing responsibility over selfishness. Some people aren't built for marriage, Wes. They're built for taking. I should have seen it. You saw what you wanted to see. A woman who loved you and wanted to build a life with you. That's not a character flaw. It is when it blinds you to the truth. Zora sat across from him. What are you going to do about the wedding? I'm going to be there for my son. And I'm going to make sure Grace doesn't ruin his day the way she ruined mine. Be careful, Wes. Hurt people do desperate things. I'm not the one who's hurt. I'm the one who's angry. And anger is useful. The next day, Grace called. I need more time to think about your offer. You have 24 hours left. It's not that simple. I need to figure out where I'm going to live, how I'm going to pay my bills. You should have thought about that before you started stealing from our family. I never stole anything. I used money that was legally mine. You used money that was legally ours to fund a relationship with another man. You tried to mortgage our house without my permission. You attempted to defraud our son out of his inheritance. That's not using money that's legally yours. That's theft. I made mistakes, but I don't deserve to be left with nothing. You don't deserve to be rewarded for betraying your family. What if I agree to pay back the money? The credit cards, the cash withdrawals. What if I take responsibility for my mistakes? And you give me a reasonable settlement. Enough to start over. How much is reasonable? $20,000. Just enough to get an apartment and get back on my feet. Wes was quiet for a long moment. $20,000 was less than a quarter of what she'd originally demanded. It was barely enough to cover her debts. You pay back every penny you stole. You take responsibility for all the debt you created. You stay away from our son's wedding unless he specifically invites you. And you never contact me again except through lawyers. Done. I'm not finished. You also publicly acknowledge that you were wrong, that you betrayed our family, and that you're sorry. I'm not going to humiliate myself in public. Then we go to court. Your choice. Grace was quiet for a long moment. Then, fine, but I get to choose how and when. As long as it's before the wedding. It will be. After she hung up, was called Delaney. I need a favor, he said. What kind of favor? I need you to help me with something for the wedding. Something that will make sure Grace keeps her word. What did you have in mind? Insurance. The kind that makes sure people don't change their minds at the last minute. I'm listening. Can you get access to the audiovisual equipment at the wedding venue? Probably. Why? Because I want to make sure Grace's apology is memorable. For everyone. Delaney was quiet for a moment. Mr. Anderson, are you sure about this? Public humiliation is a powerful weapon, but it's also permanent. So is betrayal. Grace made her choice. Now she gets to live with the consequences. What do you need me to do? I need you to help me prepare a presentation. Something that tells the whole story. The financial records, the timeline, the evidence of her deception. Something that makes it clear exactly what she did and why. That's going to be brutal. It's going to be the truth. And the truth is what people deserve to hear. What if she doesn't show up to the wedding? Then Cassidy will know exactly what kind of person his mother really is. Either way, the truth comes out. 2 days before the wedding, Wes received a manila envelope from Grace's attorney. Inside were signed agreements acknowledging her debt, her deception, and her responsibility for the financial damage she'd caused. There was also a cashier's check for $8,000 partial payment toward what she owed, but there was no apology. Wes called Grace's number. It went straight to voicemail that he tried her work number. Grace Anderson is no longer employed here. The receptionist said he called Cassidy. Have you heard from your mother? Not since last week. Why? She was supposed to provide a public apology as part of our settlement. Instead, she's disappeared. Maybe she's just embarrassed. Maybe she needs time. She's had months to do the right thing. She's not going to start now. So what happens at the wedding? The truth happens, whether she's there or not. The night before the wedding, Wes sat in his empty house, looking at the presentation Delaney had helped him prepare. Financial records, timeline of deception, evidence of Grace's betrayal. All of it laid out in stark, undeniable detail. He thought about the young man and woman who'd gotten married 20 years ago, full of hope and dreams. He thought about the promises they'd made, the life they'd built, the son they'd raised together. Then he thought about Grace driving away with another man in his truck, leaving him with nothing but lies and debt and the wreckage of a family. Some things couldn't be forgiven. Some betrayals were too deep to heal. Tomorrow, everyone would know the truth, and the truth would set him free. The wedding venue and monument was everything Cassidy and Delaney had dreamed of. Rolling hills, mountain views, and a rustic elegance that spoke to their vision of a life built on solid ground. Wes stood at the back of the ceremony space, watching his son greet guests in his dress uniform, looking every inch the man he'd raised him to be. Grace hadn't shown up for the ceremony. Her absence was noted, but not discussed. Cassidy had handled it with grace, simply telling guests that his mother was unable to attend due to personal circumstances. Now, as the reception began, Wes watched his son dance with his new wife, surrounded by family and friends who'd come to celebrate their future. It should have been perfect. Would have been perfect if not for the elephant in the room. You ready for this? Delaney asked, approaching him with a USB drive in her hand. As ready as I'll ever be. You know there's no going back after this. Once people see what's on here, they can't unsee it. Good. People should know the truth. Delaney nodded toward the head table. Cassidy still doesn't know exactly what you're planning to show. He knows enough. He knows his mother tried to steal his inheritance. He knows she's been lying to all of us for months. This is going to hurt him. The truth hurts, but lies hurt more. Wes walked to the front of the room as the band finished their set. He picked up the microphone, and the crowd quieted. Thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate Cassidy and Delaney. As father of the groom, I'm supposed to give a speech about love and commitment and the importance of honoring your promises. He paused, looking out at the faces in the crowd. Family, friends, colleagues. people who'd known him and Grace for years. But I think it's more important to talk about truth, about honesty, about what happens when someone breaks the promises they made to the people who trusted them most. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Cassidy looked up from his table, his face tight with concern. Most of you know that Grace and I separated recently. What you might not know is why. Wes nodded to Delaney, who plugged the USB drive into the AV system. The screens around the room lit up with a timeline. Grace left me on our 20th wedding anniversary, but she didn't leave on impulse. She'd been planning her exit for almost a year. The first slide showed bank records, highlighted withdrawals, credit card statements, financial records that painted a clear picture of systematic deception. She opened secret credit cards in both our names. She attempted to refinance our house without my knowledge. She tried to trick our son into signing away his inheritance rights. The crowd was silent now, staring at the evidence on the screens. Wes saw Grace's sister in the audience, her face pale with shock. She did all of this to fund a relationship with a man who was using her for money. A man who was cheating on her the entire time. The next slide showed photographs. Grace and Jazz together, followed by surveillance photos of Jazz with other women. The timeline made it clear that he'd been playing multiple women simultaneously. Grace chose to destroy our family for a man who saw her as nothing more than a source of income. She was willing to steal from her own son to fund her boyfriend's business dreams. Cassidy stood up slowly. Dad, that's enough. No, it's not enough. For 20 years, I believed in the woman I married. I trusted her with my life, my future, my family. And she threw it all away for a con artist who left her the moment he found a better mark. The final slide was a simple statement. Some betrayals are unforgivable. Some people are exactly who they show themselves to be. Wes set down the microphone and walked out of the reception hall. Behind him, he could hear the buzz of shocked conversations, the sound of people trying to process what they'd just witnessed. He was sitting in his truck when Cassidy found him. Dad, what the hell was that? That was the truth. Your mother tried to steal your inheritance. She lied to everyone who trusted her. She deserves to have people know exactly what kind of person she is. But at my wedding? In front of everyone. Where else? When else? She was supposed to be here tonight. She was supposed to publicly apologize for what she did. Instead, she ran away and left me to tell the story. Cassidy leaned against the truck. I know she hurt you. I know she lied. But she's still my mother. She stopped being your mother the moment she decided to steal from you. Now, she's just a woman who made some very bad choices. People are going to talk about this for years. Good. Maybe it'll warn other families about trusting people who don't deserve trust. Cassidy was quiet for a long moment. Delaney wants to know if you're coming back to the reception. This is your night. You and your wife deserve to celebrate without my drama. It's not drama, Dad. It's justice. Mom needed to face consequences for what she did. Wes looked at his son. Are you okay with what I did? I'm okay with you telling the truth. I'm not okay with the timing. But I understand why you did it. I won't apologize for exposing her lies. I wouldn't expect you to. But I do expect you to come back and dance with your new daughter-in-law. Wes smiled for the first time in months. I can do that. The reception continued with a subdued but determined energy. People were processing what they'd learned, but they were also celebrating the young couple who'd chosen to build their life on honesty and mutual respect. Zora found Wes during the dancing portion of the evening. That was quite a presentation, she said. It was overdue. Grace's sister left right after. So did most of her family. Good. They finally know what kind of person they've been defending. What happens now? Now I get on with my life. Without lies, without deception, without someone who sees me as nothing more than a source of income. Any regrets? Wes looked across the dance floor at his son, holding his wife close as they swayed to the music. None. Cassidy deserves to know the truth about his mother, and I deserve to be free of her lies. 2 days after the wedding, Wes received a call from Grace's attorney. My client wants to discuss the remaining terms of your settlement. What's to discuss? She agreed to pay back what she stole. The payments are automatic. She's concerned about the presentation you made at the wedding. She feels you violated the spirit of your agreement. I agreed not to contact her. I didn't agree to protect her reputation. She's considering legal action for defamation. Tell her to go ahead. I'd love to have a public trial where all the evidence gets presented in court. Bank records, credit applications, witness testimony. All of it on the public record. I'll convey your message. You do that, and tell Grace that if she ever contacts me or my family again, I'll make sure the whole world knows exactly what she did. A week later, Wes was cleaning out the garage when he found a box of Grace's things she'd left behind. Photo albums, letters, mementos from their early years together. He carried the box to his truck and drove to Grace's new apartment. She answered the door, looking tired and defeated. The apartment was small, cheaply furnished, a far cry from the comfortable home they'd shared. I brought your things, he said, setting the box on her doorstep. Keep them. I don't want reminders of that life. Neither do I. Grace looked at him for a long moment. I never meant for it to happen this way. Yes, you did. You planned every step of it. I mean the ending. The public humiliation. The way everyone looks at me now. You mean the consequences. The part where your actions actually mattered. I loved you once. No, you didn't. You loved what I could give you. There's a difference. Grace's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. For all of it. For the lies, the deception, the betrayal. I'm sorry I hurt you and Cassidy. I know you are. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry it didn't work out the way you planned. You're sorry people know the truth about you. That's not fair. Fair. Wes laughed bitterly. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been you asking for a divorce before you started stealing from our family. Fair would have been you being honest about your feelings instead of lying for months while you planned your escape. I was scared. You were greedy and selfish and willing to destroy your own family for a man who never cared about you. Grace wiped her eyes. What happens now? Now you live with the choices you made. You pay back what you stole. You stay away from my family. And you remember that actions have consequences. Will you ever forgive me? No. Some things can't be forgiven. Some betrayals are too deep to heal. Wes walked back to his truck, leaving Grace standing in her doorway with the box of memories from a life she'd thrown away. He drove to his new house in Monument, a smaller place but his own. The mortgage was manageable. The neighbors were friendly. And best of all, it held no memories of lies or betrayal that Cassidy's truck was in the driveway. He found his son and daughter-in-law in the kitchen, unpacking groceries. Dad, we brought dinner, Delaney said. Hope you don't mind us inviting ourselves over. I don't mind. This house is too quiet anyway. They cooked together, the three of them moving around the kitchen with easy familiarity. Cassidy told stories from his physical therapy clinic. Delaney shared updates from law school, and Wes talked about his plans for the house. I'm thinking about getting a dog, he said. Something big and loyal. The kind that doesn't run off with the first stranger who pays attention to it. Cassidy and Delaney exchanged glances. That's a great idea, Delaney said. Everyone needs someone they can trust completely. After dinner, they sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and red. It was peaceful, quiet, honest. Everything Wes's old life had pretended to be. Any word from Mom? Cassidy asked. She's paying back what she owes. Slowly, but she's paying. Other than that, I don't hear from her. Do you think she'll ever try to rebuild the relationship? I think she'll try to rebuild her reputation. But the relationship is over. Has been since the moment she decided to steal from you. I still love her. Despite everything. I know you do. She's your mother. But love doesn't mean accepting betrayal. Cassidy nodded. I'm glad you fought back. I'm glad you didn't let her get away with it. I'm glad you stood by me. Even when it was hard. You're my father. You taught me right from wrong. I wasn't going to abandon that because it was inconvenient. Wes looked at his son and daughter-in-law. This young couple who'd chosen honesty over comfort, truth over convenience. They gave him hope for the future. I love you both, he said. Thank you for being the kind of people I can trust. We love you too, Dad. As the sun set behind the mountains, Wes felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Peace. Not the fragile peace of pretending everything was fine, but the solid peace of knowing exactly where he stood. Grace was gone. The lies were exposed. The truth was out. And for the first time in 20 years, Wes Anderson was exactly where he belonged.